Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Adam Thompson Show.
Cutting edge.
He just told you to shut the up.
No holds barred.
Thanks for not calling me a liar, son of a...
The latest trending topics, legal cases, and social issues. In-your-face commentary on all subjects. Adam Thompson.
You can't handle the truth!
Adam Thompson brings his 25-year experience as a high-profile criminal and civil trial lawyer and gritty New York street smarts and attitude to the studio. Real unbiased talk.
Those who want respect, give respect.
You never know what he'll say next. This is the Adam Thompson Show. Here's your host, Adam Thompson.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Adam Thompson Show. Thank you for joining us. I promise you it will be time well spent. I'm Adam Thompson. I'm your host for the next half hour. As you know, this is a cutting-edge show, no holds barred. It's going to have a talk discussing the latest trending topics, legal cases, and social issues. It's going to feature my blunt, in-your-face, confrontational style and direct, real-deal commentary on all the subjects that are important to you. I'm going to bring my 25 years as a trial attorney, handling high-profile criminal and civil cases, along with my gritty New York street smarts and background and attitude. I'm from Brooklyn, folks, into the studio each week to speak to you, to get to the very bottom of what matters most. There's no left-wing babble or right-wing dribble here, no slants for conservatives or liberals or Republicans or Democrats, only real unbiased talk on important matters. And every week this show is going to feature riveting guests and controversial, in-your-face talk. Those listening in tonight, if you want to be part of the conversation, please join the debate. Please call in to our viewer call-in line. It is 347-857-1049, or email us or text us a question or a comment at attorneyadamthompson.com. We want to know what you have to say. At this time, we like to start off the show, as we will every week, with what I call Adam's Rant. Okay, everybody, here we go. You know, I like to always start my show off talking about things that have been going on in my life and that's been bothering me. Last week we talked about the airports and personal responsibility. Well, this is a little bit about that, too. You know, in setting up this show, we've been dealing with a lot of cable companies, and they've been coming and giving us calls and basically setting up times where we can meet with them to get everything in place. And you notice that they never keep their appointments. And this really bothers me because as a busy person who does a lot of different things, I really value my time. And I got to tell you, it really bothers me that they don't. Now, no matter what time you set it up for, they'll say it's either 8 to 12 or 12 to 5 or sometimes even 8 to 5, and they don't show up. They'll either come at the very end of the day when you least suspect them, if at all. But I got to tell you, they never value your time. And I notice this is like a trend with almost everywhere you go. You know, I had an appointment with my vet to take my dog in. And again, it's about valuing your time, respecting other people's time. There was no problem with my vet saying to me, if you're late, you'll be billed. If you miss the appointment, you'll be billed. If you don't call in on time, you'll be billed. But if you go there and they're busy and cancel you out, they don't pay any penalty. If I show up and wait 3 hours, that's okay because they were busy with other appointments. Folks, we have to get mad out there, and we have to let other people know that our individual time is important. It doesn't matter what you do, what your background is, what line of work you're in. We have to value our own time. And people have to learn to respect that no matter what they do. And it also shows great pride in what you do. So my rant today is, hey, respect my time, respect other people's time. You know, we all need to work out there together in the same world, so let's give a little value to ourselves and to others. With that said, this is the Adam Thompson Show. You listen on Blog Talk Radio every Thursdays, 9 o'clock. If you want to call in and talk about the rant or something else, 347-857-1049. or find us at attorneyadamthompson.com. Send us an email or a comment. Folks, it's now time for News in a Flash. If you've been living under a stone, crawled under a rock, got locked in your closet, someone threw you in the trunk, do you miss what happened this week in the news? Well, I'm going to fill you into the key stories in a few minutes or less. This week, the lead-off, one of the biggest stories going on around the country is the Hassan trial taken down in Fort Hood. If you don't know, Hassan was a former military person that went ballistic, having conspired behind the scenes with Al-Qaeda operatives and higher-ups, and basically killed 30 of our own Marines, as well as killed 13 and actually wounded over 30. He's been standing trial right now, and it's been just a debacle after a debacle. He originally had attorneys. They were released by him, and he's been appearing pro se. The court has appointed attorneys that have been acting behind the scenes as stand-ins, but he's basically using this as a platform to spew out all hate and all propaganda on behalf of the people that he is now aligned with, who's the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. We have to put a stop to this. Hopefully the trial will go smoothly where there'll be no appellate issues, and at the end of the day, he will face the death penalty for these egregious acts. That's enough about him. Let's move on. A-Rod, you all know what's going on with him, using controlled substances that were banned by Major League Baseball. Well, lots of players have done that, been there, done it, and we're trying to put an end to it so baseball doesn't get a bad reputation and a black eye that it can't recover from. But unlike other players that accepted the ban, A-Rod didn't. But what he fails to acknowledge or even understand is baseball's after him not just because he illegally used these substances, not only that he denied it over and over, but they're saying that he actually impeded and tried to interfere with the investigation and even the evidence that was gathered against him. That you can't do. Look for more on this story, and the appeal is underway. He'll face it at the end of the season, but he's going to be made an example. Next story. If you haven't been following elections in New York City, well, let me tell you, Kristen Davis, former New York madam, is running for controller. Well, she was just busted for allegedly selling prescription drugs to federal informants over 4 times this year. She's running in that same race against Elliot Spitzer, who's trying to make a comeback over part of a scandal where Davis herself said that Spitzer was one of her customers when she was a madam. It doesn't get more bizarre or more surreal than this, folks. In New York, hey, I'm from there, Brooklyn, in the house. Can't we find people to run for office that don't have this baggage or garbage? Come on, there's lots of credible and competent people out there. Let's find them. Let's move on. Ariel Castro, his house is demoed out in Cleveland following his conviction and his sentencing in the abduction and kidnapping of 3 women for over 10 years. Good thing they tore that house down. We don't need a reminder of him in any community, and it shows that that's a thing of the past. Time to move on to more positive things. Next story. Obama's not going to Russia to meet with President Putin as a result of the Eric Snowden case and the asylum Russia granted him. I think that's a good sign. Finally, U.S. shown some backbone towards Russia. We don't need to send out mixed messages that people that might have compromised our national security is not going to be handled appropriately, and that will just turn the other cheek. Kudos for you, Mr. Obama, on this one. That was the message to send. Just in today, Boston bombing case. 2 friends of the Boston bombers were indicted today on obstruction of justice charges. Supposedly, FBI officials went to these individuals with photos of the suspects to gather information, and they were led astray and told false information. Folks, if you're going to have terrorists bombing our country, you need to step up and help out, not impede. And last story on our list, Jackie Robinson statue in my home city of Brooklyn was defaced with racial slurs. They were all kind of SWAT stickers, anti-Semitic language, and racial slurs scrawled on the statue. That's simply as disgusting as it gets. People, we need to find who did this, bring them to justice. Jackie Robinson is an icon and a symbol of unity and bringing people together, not the opposite what we saw these despicable people do. And that, my friends, is News in a Flash. All right. We have waiting in the wings right now a very, very, very special guest. I'm very honored to have her on. And if you've been following the blog all week, I've been getting lots of emails, lots of call-ins. It's been tremendous. We have waiting right now Rita Cosby, veteran TV news anchor, host of the Rita Cosby Show on WOR AM radio, 710 on your dial. If you haven't heard her, and I'm sure you have, you need to hear her. It is a great show, great guest, great topics. She cuts right to the core of everything. And I also want to say that she is a best-selling author. Her present book, Quiet Hero, Secrets of My Father's Past. It is a tremendous read, incredible. I'm going to have her, talk about that a little bit once she comes on. But without further ado, I would like to get to our guest, Miss Rita Cosby.
How are you, Adam? Congratulations on the great new show.
Thank you very much, Rita. It's an absolute honor and a privilege to have you on. I'm very excited by your appearance today. And again, if we have any callers out there, our call-in number again is 857-1049. If you have any questions for Rita or any of the things we'll be talking about today. Rita, let me start right out of the box.
I want to also say, too, to everybody listening out there, I know this is your new show. I am so happy to be on the show with you, Adam, and also for all of you listening out there. I've had Adam on my show for a long time. I love Adam. He is fantastic. You're a great attorney, and everyone listening, you're in for a real treat.
Thank you, Rita. That's very kind that you say that. But I want to jump into it because we have little time. I wish we had more than just a half-an-hour show at this point, and I want our guests to hear your great viewpoints because I could tell you from past experience when Rita and I get together and have conversations, it's usually electric, and I don't want to waste any time. So the easiest place to start is A-Rod and this whole doping scandal. What's your take on this?
You know what? I think it is a mess, and I think had he sort of come out sooner and tried to negotiate with baseball, I think it would have been a lot better for him. I interviewed on my show the other day Pete Rose, who, of course, was banned from baseball. He was then not allowed to be inducted to the Hall of Fame because he was banned from the sport. And here was Pete Rose, who, look, he should not have cheated on baseball. He should not have done what he did, 20 years ago. But he was one of the greatest hitters of all time, and he can't even play the game. And he's looking now, and he even said, what's up with A-Rod? He thinks what he got was, that it was appropriate. He was punished, but he feels he's been punished enough. And then he sees someone like A-Rod who gets suspended, and is still able to play while he's appealing so far. And he feels like in many ways A-Rod got a bit of a slap on the wrist. And so far A-Rod hasn't really apologized to his players, to his fans. In New York, too, they just, everywhere you go, they're calling him A-Royd, not A-Rod. And I think it's going to be a tough road for him. Every stadium he goes in, you're going to hear these massive boos.
Well, it's just amazing how the steroids conversation is just taken over the entire sport. You don't even, when you talk to fans these days, you don't hear who pitched a great game or hit home runs or who won what game, what was the final score. It's which players are doping and which players are getting suspended for what amount of time. I really think that the big thing with A-Rod that is really struck a chord in a lot of people is, listen, all of us are subject to making mistakes and things happen in life, and you hope that you learn from it and you move on and you don't repeat these errors. And I think with A-Rod, he initially came out and said years ago he did dope up using illegal substances. He's learned his lesson. He didn't want to talk about it at the time but came clean. And then when he made all these public statements that I did it in the past, but it's never going to happen again. From this point forward, I'm going to be clean, straight, and narrow. I'm being straight with you now. And that was back in 2009, and this whole new case is basically about, from that same time period going forward, that he continued to use and brought other people supposedly to biogenesis to use as well, but then actively tried to conceal or hide part of the investigative evidence that they uncovered so it couldn't be used against them as part of a case. I mean, that's what I think is really where the commissioner's office really was upset, that he's actually trying to impede the investigation. I mean, what have you heard about that?
I think you're right, and I think that's exactly, Adam, why they went after him so bad. And it's interesting because you hear the language, of the commissioner's office, and I've covered, sports for a long time, and I'm a huge Yankee fan, so, you know, you want the best for the game and the best for all the players, and especially the best for the fans. But you're right, he really infuriated the commissioner's office, and you could hear when they were waiting to see what are they going to give him as a punishment, you could hear the trickling out from the commissioner's office saying they're furious at him, that he was trying to hide, that he was trying to block the investigation, that he was trying to get others to mislead. He was trying to do a number of things, and that's when they really blew their stack, and that's when they really said, you know what, this guy, we really need to throw the book at him. I don't think it was just because he was A-Rod and they were trying to make an example. I think that was part of it, but I think much of it was because he was doing all these other things, and they just thought he was arrogant. They felt he was not trying to even reach out to the commissioner's office. He finally did in the 11th hour, but at that point they said, forget it. We've already seen your track record. But I think he hit it on the head, and that's why, you know, they gave him, 211 games, which does sound like a lot. But then if you look at what Pete Rose went through, it's not as much.
Right. I think the big gripe that he's having is he officially on paper hasn't been formally charged yet as a first offender. And all the other first offenders get 50 games, a second offense is 100, and then the third is more like a ban. But, you know, he's come out and said that he's done it in the past and was fortunate he wasn't charged with it. So, you know, it's a very interesting thing that his attorneys, ironically, with all the bad stuff coming out about A-Rod, really may have a really strong argument with the arbitrator's office when they go there to say, hey, he's never been charged. He's still a first offender. How do we get to 210 games? But let me ask you something else.
And you're right. I think they can make a compelling case, but then they're going to say, hey, wait a minute. He blocked this. He tried this. He did this. He did that. And do you want us to double that or not? You know?
That's it. Well, they got to send a message. If not with A-Rod, then with who? But I want to ask you another thing related to that. He made some very unique arguments when he went up to the microphone. Not what many people expected him to be saying in light of everything going on. You thought maybe he would try to dance around a little bit, or he would try to really accept some form of responsibility. And as you said, he was arrogant and did none of that. But what he did was he not only said that he's appealing, but then he tried to say that the Yankees and Major League Baseball might be in cahoots so that the Yankees could get out from under his huge contract in the tens of millions of dollars. I just found that outrageous. Just further pointing blame elsewhere instead of trying to at least show some kind of humility, but blaming the Yankees in cahoots. I mean, what do you think of that?
Oh, it was outrageous. Yeah, it was sort of like everybody else is plotting against him, and it's because he's A-Rod, and as opposed to, well, maybe I did do something wrong. And even, this is a small thing, but I think a little bit indicative. The other day when there was a number of players come up, and this was in Chicago, when he played his game after the suspension, they played the White Sox. And so he's in Chicago, with Yankees, and, before and after the game, Joe Girardi, the manager, and a number of others were talking to the players sort of amongst themselves. And some other players made some statements, and others were sort of talking about, and kind of everyone's looking and saying, let's talk to A-Rod, let's find out what A-Rod has to say. And he said nothing. And it's interesting, even coming out from, sources, people coming out there saying, they found that very arrogant because that was a behind-closed-doors opportunity to say to the team, hey, sorry, I'm dragging you in this, or sorry, I hope it doesn't reflect that on you or baseball or anything. And he did, even privately, wouldn't say a word. Maybe, even if you don't have to necessarily admit guilt, as you know, as an attorney, he's got to be careful what he says and what he doesn't say. But he could still say, sorry, you're dealing with this ordeal, and sorry, there was none of that. So a lot of the players feel
Absolutely.
like, just very.
That's a great point. What goes on in the clubhouse stays in the clubhouse, like Vegas, and you would think he would have at least made some kind of, statement to his own teammates along those lines. Real quick, I want to ask you, before I go into what I call Adam's five questions, real quick, I want to ask you about your book because I think it's tremendous, and I'm very curious for the readers and the listeners out there that haven't had a chance. Could you tell them a little bit about Quiet Hero?
I think, and you know what? This has been the greatest story of my life and the most important story of my life, Adam. Separate than all the stuff I do for TV and radio and everything, my father left the family when I was a teenager, and we just reunited a few years ago, and it turns out he was a prisoner of war in World War II, had this whole secret past that he did not share with anyone, including my mother, who he was married to for 30 years plus. And I made this incredible discovery of a couple items, and I reunited with my dad, and we did a book together. It's called Quiet Hero, Secrets from My Father's Past. And it's not just a tribute to my dad, but it's really a tribute to everybody who goes through difficult times, and especially our military. So if you're a big fan of the military, please go out and get the book. A portion of the proceeds go to troops and our families, because at the end of the day, the U.S. military literally rescued my prisoner of war father. And it's my way to say thank you to who I think is the greatest fighting force in the world. And you can go on quiethero.org and find out how you can get the book and find out more about the story, but definitely share it with your friends. And I think it'll be a great inspiring read for women and men. And it's a love story of a daughter and father, but also a great tribute to our great men and women, too, on the front line.
Well, I think it's an absolutely compelling and amazing story, and frankly, I fully expect someone from Hollywood to come knocking on your door to make it into a movie one day, because it tells so many different stories of interest to so many different people. I mean, it's heart-wrenching, and I think it's just unbelievable, and it's great. For those people who don't know, go out and buy the book. Again, Quiet Hero. It is tremendous. Again, you're listening to the Adam Thompson Show here on Blog Talk Radio. Be part of our conversation. Call 347-857-1049 or attorneyadamthompson.com on the web. Send us an email or a question. I want to go to my 5 questions for you, Rita. You ready? Line it up. Real quick answers. Don't even think. It's like you're at the psychiatrist. I'm just throwing out a question at you.
You got it.
Most compelling story you ever covered, and I know there's tons of them because your bio, if you don't know her background, is unbelievable. She talked to and seen and did everything. Most compelling story you ever covered.
Well, one in part with my dad, and then also in the Middle East. I've covered a lot of war zones, too.
Okay. The interview that had affected you the most over the years?
And I have to say, whatever it is that day, and that's a crazy answer because I love what I do, and I meet so many interesting people, have great people like you on my shows, whether it's a celebrity or a world leader or an awesome attorney, whoever it is, it's that day is my favorite story.
If you could interview anybody, who would it be?
If I could interview anybody right now, it would probably be Edward Snowden and say, why did you do this to America? And what's going on? What kind of pizza are you having in Russia?
Okay. This is more personal note. Guilty delight that no one knows that you love.
You repeat that again, Adam?
A guilty delight that you have that no one knows about.
Ah, a guilty delight. It could be maybe a great pizza or a little bit of pistachio ice cream.
I'm with you on that. Last song that you sang to on the radio or MP3 player you were listening to?
You know what? And this sounds hokey. I love all kinds of music, but I was just at a Barry Manilow concert. And he was singing Mandy, and I Write the Songs. Those are old classics. But I love current, and I love fast music. I love everything. But I've been singing Mandy and I Write the Songs because I got to see him live just a few days ago.
Last question. What was the toughest career decision you ever had to make?
Whether to call into this show or not. But I decided yes.
Well, I'm glad you made that tough career decision and joined us tonight. We're unfortunately out of time with you, Rita. We went a little bit over, but for you, I do it every single time. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the great Rita Cosby. Again, listen to her on WOR every day if you get the chance, and also visit her website as well as buy her book that's out, Quiet Hero. You will not be disappointed. I guarantee you it is tremendous. All right, we have a little bit of time left. We have a couple of segments we still have to get in, but we're going to have to cut them short tonight. But we are going to go right now to the bottom line. Okay, this week there's been a lot of things we have been discussing, and I want to get to the bottom line. This is a segment where basically I will tackle some legal issues or questions based on all the emails I got in the past week since the last show that people called in and wanted to get answers to. So I'm going to try to blow through them real quick. Here we go. People called in, they said, what do you think about the Zimmerman case where he got pulled over for speeding on the street and they showed him in the video with the police officer? My response to that is, who cares? Really? We're still talking about Zimmerman? We got the verdict. It's over. It's done. People get pulled over for speeding every day. Why are we talking about Zimmerman getting pulled over for speeding? Let's move on. What did I think about the Castro comments at his sentencing where he made all these outlandish comments, including that the people that were in the house had consensual sex with him? Well, what can you say about that? This guy's out there. He's over the top. He's crazy. But he's a pretty calculating guy, too, because he had everything planned that he kept this under wraps for 10 years. I think he got what he deserved. Nothing wrong with life imprisonment with no parole and 1,000 years on top of that. Should he have gotten the death penalty? Well, folks, if it doesn't apply to someone like him or to Hassan in that other case in Fort Hood, I don't know who it applies to. But it's good to see this guy off the street forever. I got questions about Obama canceling the meeting with Putin in Russia. What do I think of that? I think it's tremendous. It sends the right message that if people break the laws here in the U.S. of such a magnitude and they're going to flee the country and seek asylum, that we will go after them. And if we can't get them, then we should have the countries that they are seeking asylum in or trying to flee to cooperate with us and return them. I think countries need to work together to put an end to crime internationally. And if we all have pacts and work in assistance with each other, we can put an end to people just fleeing countries and getting away with crimes from their home country. This has to end. So kudos to President Obama for doing that. I think that he should not meet with President Putin, and he should send a strong message that's been done. The Hassan trial, I've heard that there's been comments that this has been called a workplace incident or accident and not an act of terrorism. What's your thoughts on that? I find it disgusting. That's my thoughts on that. This is clearly act of terrorism. What this man did is beyond disgusting, horrible. You can't even put words to it. I will say this, that we need to declare this an act of terrorism so all those that were killed and those that were injured, their families will receive the benefits they're entitled to, military awards of honor, and the compensation they deserve. We need to stand up and say this loud so Congress hears us. People, America first. Remember, America first. Respect our armed forces. And finally, A-Rod, do you think the Yankees conspired with Major League Baseball that he tried to get out of the contract with him and avoid it? Well, we just talked about that with Rita. I don't think the Yankees did, but I will say this. If they did, can you blame them? Look what he's dragged them through. They signed this guy for hundreds of millions of dollars to break home run records and bring honor to the Yankee pinstripes, and he's failed to do that. I'm a huge Yankee fan, folks. The sooner we can get him out of pinstripes, the absolute better. We only have like 3 minutes left, so I want to take one call. Ryan, cue him up. Who do we have on the line?
Hey, it's Victor Vega.
Hey, Vic, go ahead. How are you tonight?
How's it going, man? I really like your show. I love Rita. Loved her since Fox News, and I hope she doesn't mind that I still think she's a Fox babe.
Oh, that's great. So what's your question, Vic?
Okay, basically it's on Nidal Hassan. I'm a 10-year Navy vet, served during the first Desert Storm. Given that prisoner Hassan Nidal is found guilty, let's say he's found guilty, what is the likelihood he will be executed? And if he's not found guilty, what's the likelihood he will face federal or state murder charges?
That's a great question, Vic. Thanks for calling in. That's Vic from Florida. Well, I think if he's convicted, he will get the death penalty. That's what this is all about. If there was going to be a plea bargain, it already would have happened. The only reason he's going to trial is because with a death penalty is the ultimate sentence for a jury. That's what's happening here. And I will say, I don't anticipate that if he is getting the death penalty, it will be overturned. I think there'll be probably 5 to 10 years of appeals that will follow. But in the end of the day, he's going to get the death penalty. That's it. Do I see a follow-up state of federal prosecution after this? I don't, because I think it's all going to end with this case. All right, Vic, thanks. You know, all the people that were on our queue waiting to call in, I really wish we had more time for you, but unfortunately, we do not. That is it this week. I promise that I'm going to get to our shut-up segment and our segment next week. But I do want to be able to say, you've been listening to the Adam Thompson Show on blogtalkradio.com. Be part of the conversation and be heard. Call in live and be on the air, 347-857-1049. Visit our website, attorneyadamthompson.com. Leave us a comment. Give us questions or topics for next week. I really want to hear from you. Be part of the conversation. Next week, we're going to have the magnificent radio talk show host you all know him, Steve Milesberg. He's going to be live in studio, so please send your questions or comments to Steve now. Visit him also on his website. Again, our special thanks to the incredible Rita Cosby for being on tonight. It was very special to have her. I cannot even put it to words. Veteran TV anchor and host of the Rita Cosby Show, 710 Radio, and the author of Quiet Hero, Secrets from My Father's Past. Visit our website when you get a chance. Type in Rita Cosby. That's all we have time for tonight, folks. Thanks for joining the Adam Thompson Show. And remember, always think outside the box.